What's up, Chaos Shinobi here. If you enjoy the story, like and subscribe so I can make more awesome videos for you guys. Chapter 1. With Sasuke. Ha! Beizo yelled as he once more clashed his saber with Sasuke's Chokuto. The force of their swords, both infused with chakra, caused a shockwave to erupt from them and sent the parts of the ground flying backwards as a crater formed underneath them. The two soon backed away from one another and Sasuke took that moment to throw a barrage of shuriken at Beizo. However, Beizo merely used his weapon to deflect the shuriken with ease. However, that was merely a distraction as Sasuke then formed several hand seals, Kaden, Great Dragon Fire Jutsu. And then he fired a large fireball in the shape of a dragon's head straight towards Beizo. In return, Beizo pointed his sword forward and then did a circle motion with it while murmuring, 10 star arrows. And then, launching from the tip of his sword were 10 blue arrows launched towards Sasuke's attack. When the two collided, they created a large explosion that blocked Sasuke from Beizo's view, but a few seconds later, before Beizo could even blink, a purple energy-colored arrow came out of the smoke straight towards him. However, by some stroke of luck, Beizo managed to move fast enough and jump onto a branch and avoided the arrow. According to the information we gather on both the Uchiha clan history and Sasuke Uchiha, that arrow came from his Susanoo. Beizo thought to himself as he scanned the area for Sasuke. His Majesty warned me to finish the Uchiha off before he could use it to its full extent. I had better equip myself and stick to the high ground, since if the Susanoo is fully completed, then Sasuke can't leave the ground. But I need to absorb enough natural energy to fire such an attack. His thoughts were cut off when a powerful blast of wind struck him, though since his feet were letting out chakra, he struck to the branch. The cause of the blast was from Sasuke's Susanoo, which had indeed gone into its complete form. The form was the upper body of a purple giant with 4 arms, 2 on each side and conjoined at the elbow. The main left arm had a shield bow and a purple orb in the secondary right arm. The being wore a tengu-like layer of armor with jagged teeth around the hood that had 3 edges sticking out, and finally wore Magatama earrings. Beizo smirked to himself as he gazed at Sasuke's Susanoo. As the report says, yours does indeed have the appearance of a demon. Sasuke didn't reply except for narrowing his eyes. Then, following a telepathic command from the Uchiha, the Susanoo's main right arm pulled a long purple arrow from the orb in the second right arm and loaded it into the bow. Once it was loaded and Sasuke had a clear sight, the Susanoo fired the arrow. The arrow went at an incredible speed that almost struck Beizo if the Uzumaki hadn't already anticipated that and jumped out of the way. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, light step, Beizo said, and soon 2 small white seals, one underneath each foot, appeared, and then the Uzumaki was standing in the air. But soon Beizo had to move again in order to avoid several Yasaka Megaton projectiles fired by Sasuke's Susanoo. He's going to keep using long-range attacks in order to keep me away from him, Beizo thought as he continued dodging attacks. But suddenly he was struck from behind by what appeared to be another Sasuke. Shadow clone. Beizo thought as he looked back in front of him and saw that he was heading straight towards the original. Said person had formed a purple blade within his Susanoo's second left hand. However, Beizo wasn't someone who could be killed so easily. Reflect, and Beizo raised right hand where a clear, nearly invisible barrier appeared and managed to deflect Susanoo's blade. This stunned Sasuke as he had not expected someone to be able to repel one of Susanoo's blades so easily. Once that was settled with the air, you decided to take this chance and lunged forward, hoping to strike the Uchiha now while the blackhead was distracted, but he paused when he saw Sasuke smirking, and before Beizo could react, the second right hand came at him with the orb in its hand. Except this time the orb wasn't purple but black, the black flames of Amaterasu. Beizo didn't even have time to curse as the black orb slammed into him and sent him flying to the side, crashing into the trees nearby with black flames still clinging to his body. Knowing that the man was good as dead, Sasuke deactivated Susanoo and his Sharingan. That man was trying to kill me and most likely trying to stop me from getting to Konoha, which means that the village is in danger too. I better use a summon to fly me there, Sasuke thought to himself. Then he turned around and was about to begin forming the hand seals for the summoning jutsu. He heard a whizzing noise from behind and just barely dodged a chakra-made arrow that could have cleaved his head off along with a small portion of his chest. Sasuke spun around and was honestly shocked to see Beizo get back up and his sword back in his hand. The upper left portion of his jacket and the sleeve were gone, burned away by the black flames. But what shocked Sasuke most was that the flames still clinging to Beizo's body were slowly coming off. I admit that was an impressive attack, Sasuke Uchiha, Beizo said calmly as he flexed his left arm, making some cracking sounds as he moved it, a sign that he was putting bones back into place. But not even the black flames of Amaterasu can penetrate my Shintai. With the older generation of the Inoshikacho, before the 3 could react, Kizoku formed a set of hand seals and ended with the ram seal, muttering, fire, and then launching from the air around him were dozens of blue glowing projectiles. They were all heading towards the older Inoshikacho team. Shit. Move, Inoiki yelled as he jumped to the left while Choza grabbed Shikaku, who looked a little weak after his techniques were sealed, jumped to the right. Though they managed to avoid taking the brunt of the attack, the explosion afterwards inflicted some burns on their bodies. What the hell was that? Choza asked out loud when he landed. That was the Uzumaki Advanced Chakra Shape Manipulation. Shikaku replied while cursing inside his head. Shit, we were careless to just wait for them to come without trying to find out a single thing about them. I should have noticed that something was off when Mitao, Jiraiya-sama and I concluded that they only sealed someone's Kekkei Genkai. It's probably a good chance that what happened to me happened to others. Indeed, it is our greatest gift, as well as the centerpiece of our past downfall. Kizoku suddenly said as he appeared on top of the Akimichi and Nara heads, cutting off Shikaku's thought process. This time surrounding his right arm was a white lance that he brought down onto Choza, but before it could impale the Akimichi, Kizoku suddenly felt a disturbance in his mind, causing him to miss Choza slightly. The Yamanaka. Kizoku thought as he took a brief glance toward said mind reader who had his hands in a familiar form. However, Kizoku suddenly broke the connection quickly, shocking Inoiki. Despite that, the brief interference allowed Choza to land a strong punch into the Uzumaki's chest. But when the two made contact, Choza's eyes widened. It's like his body is made out of iron or something, he thought, since Kozuke had managed to use Shintai to negate the damage he would have taken. But he did jump back to a healthy distance. Damn, that's some body he has. Choza muttered to himself as he and Shikaku joined besides Inoiki, with their opponent standing on the opposite side. We need to inform the others about what just happened, Shikaku said to his former teammates. Inoiki, can you send out a telepathic message to all the shinobi in the village? Not on my own, Inoiki said. But I can transfer the message to my clansmen and have them send it out to others. Then do it, Shikaku said as he pulled out a kunai and looked at Kozuke. We need to warn them immediately about this. With Minato Namikaze. What? Their techniques were sealed. How? Minato thought to himself when he received a telepathic message from Inoiki Yamanaka and several other shinobi of the same clans. It was a unique ability that the Mind Reader clan had managed to develop somewhere in their message. As the name implied, it allowed them to send messages via their mind to others. It wasn't an easy technique due to the stress it put on the user, as well as that they had to know the exact location of the person they're speaking to. If they could locate the person's chakra, then it would be easier. Right now Inoiki was sending out a telepathic message and having other members of his clan transmit them out as well to warn the rest of Konoha. Shit, this is not what we expected. Minato cursed inside his head. I had already figured that they had some kind of way of sealing a Kekkei Genkai, but to seal someone's specialty? This will not end well. Minato paused from thinking to stare at Kane. Said Uzumaki looked somewhat bored, which was probably due to the fact that he was slowly overpowering the Yondaime Hokage. Despite Hiroshin or Minato's incredible physical speed, Kane managed to predict his movements and counteract effectively. The Uzumaki was making it look easy to keep up with Minato's speed while defending himself and landing some hits on the young Hokage. And then there is his strength. Minato thought as he looked at where his left rib was. Kane had managed to land a hit there, breaking it as well, puncturing a lung. It was only thanks to the face that Minato had the basic knowledge of medical ninjutsu that he managed to lessen the injury, though the rib was still broken. His strength is on the same level as Tsunade-sama, but I haven't sensed him focusing any chakra to his fists or other parts of his body. So what's he doing? You should be more worried about yourself than the others, Kane said as he charged forward with his sword raised, intending to cut Minato in two. But the Yondaime Hokage was quicker and managed to jump out of the sword strike. Pulling out his dual swords, Minato charged both with different chakra. The sword in his left hand had lightning chakra while the one in his right hand had wind chakra. Once that was done, Minato Namikaze charged forward. Kane smirked as his sister's husband charged forward. Raising his broadsword upwards, Kane made it appear that he planned on striking Minato. Instead he brought his sword down on his right, blocking a sword strike launched by Minato, much to the Hokage's surprise. Minato couldn't believe it. Kane had somehow managed to figure out his plan of charging straight forward and then shifting to the right for a surprise attack. Again, he predicted my move again? What kind of an ability is this? Looks like you can't figure it out, Kane said as he kicked Minato hard in the chest. This caused the Yondaime Hokage to skid backwards a few feet, somehow keeping his grip on his two swords. But I'm not the kind of guy who reveals his secrets, not even if it's an easy fight. Bastard, Minato cursed silently. Kane meanwhile adjusted his broadsword so that it was pointing at Minato. Then before the Hokage could question what the Uzumaki was doing, a white energy substance began to swirl around the tip of the blade until it formed a white sphere. Once it was done, Kane fired it directly towards Minato, but, much to Kane's shock, Minato had already disappeared in a blink of an eye, and this time he had no idea where the Yondaime Hokage went. Where did he? But his question was cut off when he was suddenly kicked in the back of the head. The force of the kick sent Kane flying back several feet. Kane managed to recover just as Minato reappeared before the Uzumaki and with both swords, created an X/cut on Kane's chest, tearing off pieces of the Uzumaki's uniform and blood spraying out of his flesh. But Minato didn't stop there. He went even faster. He began leaving several slashes on Kane's body. His arm, legs, back, cheek and shoulders. The Uzumaki's body was covered in numerous scratches in a short amount of time. And while his clan's healing ability was helping the wounds close in his shintai, preventing Minato from landing fatal blows, but Kane couldn't keep up with the Yondaime's speed. I'm not 100% sure how he was able to anticipate my attacks before Minato thought, as he landed another blow on Kane, this time leaving another scratch on the man's back. But so far it looked like Kane was able to foresee my attack, similar to how the Sharingan can see one's chakra and movements. But if I go fast enough, Kane can't keep up. With that in mind, Minato formed a Rasengan in his hand, intending to deliver the final blow. His target was Kane's chest, which had the heaviest wound, and by striking it with a technique like the Rasengan, Kane would die. Sorry Kushina, Minato thought to himself as he was about to plunge the Rasengan into Kane. But I have to do this to protect Konoha. But, with being mere inches away from the chest, Kane's hand suddenly appeared and grabbed Minato's wrist. Minato's eyes widened in shock as he realized that Kane had stopped him just before said man delivered a strong kick to the Yondaime's chin, sending Minato flying backwards in the air and then crashing into the ground, making a small crater. Humph, about time, Kane muttered as he got up and his broadsword reappeared in his right hand. Minato slowly got up, his body in pain from that hit as he looked up at Kane, now standing up and his wounds healing. Took me a while, but I finally got used to your speed, Kane stated. Minato's eyes widened at that comment. Got used to it? What do you mean? The Hokage asked. What I mean is that I adapted to your fighting style, Kane said, and shifted his sword so that it was leaning against his shoulder. My ability is adaptation, to adapt to my surroundings, my enemy's fighting style, skills, techniques and even poison, like creating antibodies. Minato was absolutely shocked when heard that. How is that even possible? He whispered. Of course it's not perfect and using it is a risk to myself too, Kane said casually as he smirked to himself. I have to experience the thing firsthand before I can adjust to it. Meaning if I want to be immune to a poison I have to actually be injected with said poison, and the damn ability doesn't kick in right away, so I don't tend to rely on it too much. Then all of a sudden Kane grabbed Minato's left leg. On the sandal he saw a set of seals on it before throwing the blonde hair man against another wall. This caused Minato to cough up blood from the impact. As I thought you put an altered version of the Hiroshin seal formula on your sandals, Kane said, remembering what he saw. Unlike the actual Hiroshin that teleports you from one place to another, the one you have on your sandals allows you to quicken your speed. In other words, 1 step counts as 10 steps and 2 steps counts as 20 steps. I can see why you were labeled as one of the 5S level threats. Then Kane rammed his sword into the ground so it could stand on its own. Then he began forming hand seals and murmured, "Sacred warrior dance," and suddenly popping into thin air were hundreds of blue glowing floating blades that appeared all around Kane and Minato. They all formed a round cylinder wall around the two. Minato was shocked of such a technique and barely had time to register Kane's next words. Impale him, and an explosion followed soon after. At Konoha's hospital, Tsunade slammed her fist into the ground where Guggen once stood. But the Uzumaki managed to jump out of the way before lunging his right arm forward towards Tsunade. As he did, his right arm began to glow and soon changed into a long black arm with 4 small blades stuck together to form a large blade. Give it up, traitor. My ability allows me to change the form and shapes of my arms to whatever I desire. That means I can prepare for whatever opponent I face off against, even you, Guggen yelled as he prepared to skewer the slug Sanin. But Tsunade managed to jump out of the way and then tried to land another of her powerful punches at Guggen, this time moving too fast for the man to dodge. In a desperate attempt to lessen the blow, he used Shintai combined with a shield he created from her left arm. Though the plan did work, Guggen was still sent back several feet when Tsuon struck his shield and created a large dent in it. Damn it! Guggen cursed out loud as his shield reverted back into his hand, revealing the damage he had taken, which was severe. His arm was bleeding and his sleeve was ripped in several places. You treacherous bitch, I'll kill you slowly for this, Guggen declared. Tsunade raised an eyebrow when he mentioned that word a second time. Traitor? Why do you keep on referring to me as a traitor? I never did anything to you guys. Not to Takiagari but to the clan, Guggen exclaimed, surprising Tsunade and Shizune, who was standing back to provide Tsunade support if needed. To the clan? Do you mean the Uzumaki clan? What have I done to them? Guggen scoffed as if Tsunade was playing dumb. Do not pretend to ignore it, granddaughter of the Shodaime Hokage Hashirama Senju, grandniece of Nidaime Hokage and Senju Princess of Konoha. Guggen exclaimed as he said off Tsunade's many titles. You take pride in the Senju name and the techniques of that clan, and yet you show no gratitude for your Uzumaki heritage. Did Mito-sama mean anything to you? Or was she just a weak grandmother from the sidelines? This made Tsunade pause, to the point she looked like she turned into a statue. It was true actually, people had always referred to her as the granddaughter of Hashirama Senju and grandniece of Tobirama Senju, both powerful members of the great Senju clan. Never once was she recognized for her relations to the Uzumaki clan or to Mito Uzumaki, the woman who inspired Tsunade to master the art of medical training, or the yin seal release that she placed on her forehead. And in relations to the Senju clan, she never denied them and was always proud of being part of that clan, yet she never shown any admiration of being part of the Uzumaki clan. Tsunade-sama, look out! Shizune's voice cried, snapping said woman out of her thoughts. Tsunade looked up and saw that Guggen was right above her. Both of his arms had transformed into two large black fists, intending to crush Tsunade once and for all. Die, traitor! He cried as he slammed his left fist down, but what should have been a quick victory changed when Tsunade effortlessly stopped the giant black hand with her hand. This shocked both Guggen and Shizune, especially the former, since Tsunade then had a strong grip on his hand and wasn't letting go. It's true that I've always been praised for my relations to the Senju clan and my grandfather, and that I've always credited most of my achievements and techniques because of my grandfather's clan, but, she said as she squeezed the hand so hard that it shattered into pieces, reverting back into a normal arm, though now it was bleeding profusely since Guggen didn't power it with Shintai. However, Guggen was still shocked by it, allowing Tsunade to grab the other arm and pulled him down towards her. But that doesn't mean I have no pride in being an Uzumaki. Neither does it mean I don't love my grandmother or am thankful for what she gave me, Tsunade roared as she slammed her right fist straight into Guggen's chest. I won't let you bastards sully her and her clan's name by invading our village, she said finally. Guggen let out a silent scream as several bones where Tsunade struck were crushed along with his lungs, ribs and stomach. The force was too great as Guggen's vision went dark and blood flew out of his mouth. Soon his body was sent flying back through several buildings until it finally stopped at the 7th building. Then he limped and fell to the ground, stone dead. Shizune was gaping the power of that punch, having never seen her master deliver such a punch before. That was incredible, Tsunade-sama. That was the most powerful punch I've ever seen before. Tsunade, however, ignored her student's praise as she looked at her fist. For unknown to Shizune, she was thinking the same thing. I delivered many strong punches before, but this one felt different. It felt a lot loose, not as concentrated like it usually does when focusing chakra. But not in a bad way, but more natural and less restrained. What the hell was that? Shizune, Tsunade shouted. When she heard a ha from her student, she continued, I'm going to call for a barrier team to set up a protective barrier around the hospital. If things get worse, then I'm heading out towards the battlefield. With Jiraiya near the western border of the village, the Toad Sage was running across the roofs of various buildings, keeping his eye out for any signs the enemy. So far he came into several confrontations, which usually resulted him in saving other Konoha with the enemy running or just moving on. They focused on the others but ignore me. Why is that? They should know that I'm one of the largest threats here in the village, so why would they ignore me? Jiraiya thought to himself as he jumped over towards another roof, but when he landed on this roof he noticed that he wasn't alone. Standing before him was another man, one of the invaders actually. He wore the Kurokashi black cloak. On his head was a black cowboy hat with the red Uzumaki symbol at the front, while he had wild red shoulder-length hair tucked behind his ears. His skin was tan with red fuzz on his chin. Underneath the man's cloak was a waist-length black jacket, while underneath it was a white shirt. Covering his hands were black gloves and a black golden belt around his jacket too, with a metal wolf's skull at the center of the belt. The belt was holding up black pants with dark gray fur on the lower legs and black sandals. 13. Jiraiya smirked as he got into a fighting stance. So someone finally steps up to the plate, eh? Jiraiya asked sarcastically. The man did not reply except for suddenly disappearing before Jiraiya's very eyes. The Toad Sage barely had any time to react when the Airyu pulled out an ornated pistol from somewhere within his cloak and pointed it straight at Jiraiya's face in point-blank range and fired a smooth chakra beam from the pistol. Jiraiya, however, managed to dodge it easily and flipped sideways to the ground below. But the man was upon him once more, this time with two pistols out, one in each hand. He fired another chakra bolt from his left pistol that Jiraiya managed to dodge before the Toad Sage delivered a powerful punch to the back of the Kurokashi's head. But if the man showed any signs of pain, then he hid it well while keeping his hat still on. While the Kurokashi landed on the ground and Jiraiya prepared to deliver a Rasengan finisher to his opponent, the Kurokashi spun around and fired 2 chakra bolts from both his pistols as well as reveal his dull gray eyes. One chakra bolt Jiraiya managed to dodge again, but this time the other managed to pierce through the Dosage's right shoulder, causing a decent amount of blood to come flying out. Jiraiya winced in pain as he clutched the hole in his shoulder as backed away a few feet from his opponent, who merely stared at him with a blank expression. "Damn, knew they would send a tough one after me but didn't think you'd be that tough," Jiraiya mumbled to himself just as his enemy raised his pistols and fired again. Except this time he fired what appeared to be multiple mini fireballs. With great speed that only a cage-level shinobi could keep up with, Jiraiya formed the hand seals, Doden, mud wall jutsu. And then a giant wall of earth popped out of the ground between the Dosage and the oncoming projectiles. When the fireballs made contact with the wall of earth, the two created an explosion that forced Jiraiya back a block. But that didn't mean that his opponent would let him relax, because as soon as Jiraiya had managed to land safely on his feet, the Airyu was upon him instantly. However, Jiraiya managed to form a Rasengan and repel the chakra bullet that the Kurokashi fired at him and then jumped over the Uzumaki. Once he was above his opponent, Jiraiya formed some more hand seals, Katen, flame bullet jutsu, and exhaled a large fireball from his mouth towards the Kurokashi. The gap was so small that the Uzumaki would have little time to dodge it. But unknown to Jiraiya, the Kurokashi muttered, "Nova bullet," and then fired from one of his pistols a large beam of chakra that was colored in orange-red. The two attacks collided and exploded, but the force mostly sent Jiraiya flying backwards and crashing into a nearby building. "Shit, this is going to be harder than I thought," Jiraiya muttered to himself as he got back to his feet. With Kushina and Mito's fight, Kushina threw a kunai with her special explosive tag attached to it at the masked Naruto. Naruto, knowing that deflecting it would be pointless, decided to jump back to avoid the blast, but instead felt his back slamming against a stone wall. Naruto could tell that Mito had set that up since the data said that Mito was capable of using water, wind and earth release elements. But Naruto was prepared for this as well as Kushina's special explosive tag. Unlike normal explosive tags that only released a single explosion, these tags had several thin layers of tags on top of each other. So when the first one went off, the explosion it created would set off the one right on top of it and so on. That's what made it so deadly, since the blast radius was wider, large and more powerful than what a person was normally used to. Kushina and Mito watched as the massive explosion consumed their mask opponent. But when the smoke cleared, it revealed that he was still alive with minimal injuries and some burn marks on his clothing and a crack on his mask. "I can't believe he managed to withstand your special explosive tag, Mom," Mito murmured in surprise. She knew how powerful those tags were, and there were very few that would survive such an explosion, and those that did were heavily burned or at least missing body parts. Kushina didn't reply because just as the smoke finished clearing, she was assaulted by a powerful downward sword strike from the masked Naruto's sword. She had just managed to raise her sword up to block the oncoming strike, but the contact between the two blades caused a small shockwave that sent Mito flying back a few feet and caused cracks in the ground to appear below Kushina's feet. "He's using Shintai to power the strength of his region," Kushina thought to herself as she managed to do a substitution with a nearby rock, which Naruto cut in two. Kushina managed to regroup with Mito, who had unsealed 2 katana. The older Uzumaki woman was contemplating her next move when she suddenly felt the disappearance of a large chakra source, one that was familiar. Mito also felt it too and looked at her mother worryingly. "That was Dad's chakra," she muttered. "Mom, you don't think?" she asked her currently shocked and concerned mother as she felt her husband's chakra fade away. Naruto also felt the chakra source fade away slowly and thought to himself, "Guess Uncle Kane took care of Namikaze." Up on top of the Hokage monument, Shingon, who was standing alongside his leader, looked up for a moment, sensing something. "It appears that Kane-san has defeated Minato Namikaze." "So it seems," the leader said in agreement as he continued gazing at the village of Konoha as the cries of the dying and the fighting continued throughout the day with smoke and fires rising into the sky. "I admit I thought that they would have put up more resistance, but I guess that what happens when a village falls to arrogance and corruption." "Shall we begin the final phase, sire?" Shingon asked his leader. The leader was about to reply when suddenly there was a massive explosion from the western side of the village. Shingon looked towards the source of the explosion and commented, "4 Kurokashi's chakra signature have just disappeared," he exclaimed in shock. "Who could have done that?" The leader, however, smiled sinisterly as he stood up. "It seems like someone is angry with me." Then he slowly turned around and saw none other than Hiruzen Sarutobi, in his ninja gear and with a bloodied face, which made his intense glare all the more intimidating. "Am I right, Hiruzen Sarutobi?" "You are indeed correct, Hakuna Uzumaki. The Sundaime Hokage replied as he released the corpse of an Kurokishi that was in his hands. As the body plopped on the ground, Hiruzen continued. I've decided to begin to make up for my many past mistakes by beginning with you Hakuna. I'm going to destroy you. With Sasuke Uchiha. With the area around them already in ruins due to the destructive force of their fight, Sasuke Uchiha and Bezo Uzumaki continued their fight, each hoping to gain an advantage over the other. Katen, Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu, Sasuke murmured and then unleashed a volley of small fireballs towards Bezo. However, the Uzumaki merely waved his left arm and for a brief second a mirror-like wind followed suit. When the fireballs reached Bezo, instead of hitting him they all went past him and struck the nearby area. Once that was done with, Bezo raised his left hand towards Sasuke. Suddenly large ball of blue lightning formed from the palm of his hand before being fired at a quick speed towards the young Uchiha. Sasuke managed to react quickly and use Susanoo's ribcage to block the attack. Shit, Bezo cursed to himself. I should have killed him before he had time to bring out Susanoo. While its offensive nature is formidable, I can just use my seal of barriers to avoid the damage. It's the defense it possesses that poses a problem. I can't seem to land any solid hits on him and it's impossible to seal it due to the changes of his chakra. I need a plan to use that ability of his against him, that's it. Bezo thought before he noticed a shadow upon him. Looking up, the Uzumaki saw that Sasuke, covered by Susanoo's ribcage and one of its arms had formed, with a blade in the hand, was coming down on him. However, Bezo managed to jump out of the way, avoiding the most likely fatal attack. Damn, this guy is not making things easy. Sasuke thought to himself as he cancelled Susanoo to conserve chakra. Killing him would be the easiest thing to do, but risking the chance of losing possible good information on Takiagari is something I would like to avoid. He paused while activating Susanoo again, forming a hand to grab Bezo, only for the man to jump out of the way again. As long as I keep Susanoo up now and then I can block his attacks while trying to figure out a way to incapacitate him. Bezo however had other ideas. When he was a good distance away he swiped his left hand, which had chakra around it, across his saber's blade, thus spreading the chakra around the blade. Before Sasuke had time to figure out what he was doing, Bezo pointed his sword forward and fired what looked like a see-through ball that was slowly getting bigger. Seeing this, Sasuke immediately activated Susanoo to its complete form in order to deflect the attack, but to his shock the attack did not strike Susanoo head-on but engulfed Sasuke and his Susanoo, leaving the young Uchiha trapped with a giant clear dome. Bezo smirked at the scene. Activating your Susanoo was a foolish mistake, Sasuke Uchiha. For doing that you have hastened your own death. The Uzumaki stated. Ignoring the man's words, Sasuke attempted to break out of the dome of chakra with Susanoo, hoping to use the giant's power to dissipate it. To his surprise however, the dome did not disappear but instead his Susanoo broke apart a little along with it squeezing down on him. This caused Sasuke to wince in pain as his own defense turned on him. What the hell? Sasuke asked himself as he tried to get his bearings back together. Outside, Bezo laughed maniacally when he noticed that the dome began to shrink around Sasuke. Did you believe brute force could break that dome? He yelled mockingly. He paused as he watched how Susanoo was beginning to both peel apart while shrinking, coincidentally crushing Sasuke within as a result. Bezo continued. His Majesty blessed me with the seal of spheres. I can create spheres of any size to protect me from attacks or trap my opponents within them. In this case, this sphere will keep you trapped in there. And any attempts of escaping with will cause it to bounce your attacks back at you while shrinking. With your Susanoo activated, that dome will cause your own technique to crush you until you're nothing but dust. And with that said, Bezo turned around, leaving Sasuke to his fate. Now that he has been taken care of, I should report to His Majesty and await his next orders. No sooner had Bezo said that did a sword appear right in front of him, heading straight for him. Because of its speed, along with the fact that his Shintai wasn't activated at the time, Bezo could do nothing as the sword went right through his neck. Gaia. Bezo choked as blood flew out of his mouth and his body falling backwards. The last thing he saw was the sword that killed him coming out, sliding back into a snake's mouth with said snake disappearing into the shadows. The dome created by Bezo soon dispersed along with said man's death. Once it was gone, Sasuke deactivated his Sharingan and his Susanoo, taking deep breaths while his body was covered with cuts. Even though he wasn't in there for so long, the damage it had done to his Susanoo and in return injured him greatly. Who the hell was that anyway? Sasuke thought to himself as he noticed Bezo's body lying on the ground, the blood coming out of his wound already staining the ground in red. However, the moment he asked himself that question, he felt something cold and sharp against his neck. Shocked at the sudden feeling and that he couldn't detect the person, Sasuke turned around to see who the wielder was and was surprised beyond belief of the person who saved him. You. Sasuke murmured. Kukaku, we meet again, Sasuke-kun, Orochimaru said with his yellow eyes looking directly at Sasuke while his Kusanagi, still covered with Bezo's blood, pressed against the Uchiha's neck. Back at Konoha, with Jiraiya's eyes widened when he suddenly felt a large force of chakra being exerted. However, he came back to his senses in order to avoid another blast of chakra from Genjo's pistol. Jiraiya responded by throwing several shuriken at Genjo, which the Uzumaki dodged easily. Their battle had caused much damage to the buildings around them. In fact, none of them could really be called buildings anymore, with only a few bits of stone and wood still standing. And Jiraiya was at a loss of figuring out his opponent's abilities, let alone defeating him. Genjo had very good aim with those pistols of his and surprisingly was good at using them for melee combat. Worse, he was fast, very fast, disappearing from one spot to another at a speed equal to Minato's Hiroshin. Jiraiya could barely form hand seals or even going into Sage mode. "So you felt it too, didn't you?" Genjo suddenly asked, pausing in his assault on Jiraiya. Looking at the Toad Sage, he continued. "Someone strong and foolish has decided to challenge His Majesty." Jiraiya smirked at Genjo. "Don't underestimate my sensei. He may be old, but he still has enough strength to hold his title as the god of shinobi." The Toad Sage replied confidently. "He won't lose to the likes of you, and I know you could sense the disappearance of 4 chakra signatures belonging to your allies." "If that was supposed to intimidate me, then give up," Genjo said with a sigh. "Besides, whatever the outcome will be, you won't be alive to see it." He finished before raising his pistol and firing a large beam of chakra at Jiraiya, and their battle restarted. On top of the Hokage monument, Shingon, who was standing by the sidelines as his leader was facing against the Sandaime Hokage, noticed the 4 bodies of the Kurokashi that Hiruzen had killed. The 4 people were Hagashi Uzumaki, who had the seal of mirrors, Chijimu Uzumaki, who had the seal of freezing a person's movements, Shiko Uzumaki, who had the seal of elastic properties, and finally Kanaku Uzumaki, who had the ability to make people question themselves. Hagashi was the most muscular of the 4, though not the largest, despite being slightly taller than the average person. His red hair was not only short but shaved so that he would have 3 red stripes as well. Underneath his Kurokashi cloak he wore a sleeveless jacket that was zipped up, and his pants were long, though the odd part was that he had black straps on the pants, 6 on each leg. Strapped to his wrists were his dual mini-shields, though they were severely cracked. Next up was Chijimu, who was lean yet muscular man with pale skin and red hair that was formed in a wild rocker style with the bangs going down the sides of his face. His jacket was unzipped, revealing his chest, which had the clan's symbol drawn on it. Chijimu's pants were baggy with holes in the center, thus revealing his kneecaps. Shingon noticed that Chijimu's tomahawk, for those who don't know, that is a type of axe, was lying on his body, broken in half. Beside him was Shiko, who was the largest of the 4 and a veteran back in the Second Shinobi War. His fair-skinned head was bald, but he did have red bangs that connected to his beard, which went around his mouth and over his chin. Underneath the Ryu cloak he wore what appeared to be a black button suit and matching pants with a red tie tucked underneath the former. He also wore dark sandals that went under the pants, and lying beside him was his broken dual tonfa. And finally there was Kanaku, the only female in the group. She was about regular height, with fair skin and an attractive body. Her red hair, with a dye of black on 3 bangs, had a single braid hanging down the right side of her face. Her Ryu uniform was normal looking with the cloak and all, except that she wore a short skirt with short pants underneath it and long sandals that went up to her knees. Besides her lifeless right hand was a tanto with the guard taking the appearance of the clan's crest. After examining the 4 corpses, Shingon looked up at Hiruzen and was surprised to see little to no wounds on the retired Hokage's body. True, there were small scratches and dirt, but no sign of actual struggle on his person. To be able to defeat 4 Kurokashi that I sent, one of them having fought in the Second Shinobi World War as a Jonin, and not even come out the least bit fatigued, Shingon thought to himself as he looked at the Hokage's eyes, which were focused on Hakuna. It appears Hiruzen Sarutobi is more powerful than we originally presumed. Back with said man, Hiruzen and Hakuna were having an intense staring contest. Old memories from over 5 decades ago came flooding into each person's head, all the way to their last battle after the fall of Ozushio. The results of said fight were that Hakuna was rendered unconscious and then carried away by fellow clansmen, while Hiruzen needed immediate medical attention because of the wound Hakuna gave him. A wound that went from his left shoulder down to the right side of his waist, a wound so deep that if it had went any deeper would have bisected the Sandaime Hokage in 2. And now they were meeting each other again, except this time Hakuna's forces were invading Konoha, overwhelming the majority of the village's forces with ease. Hiruzen couldn't help but notice that Hakuna looked younger than the Sandaime Hokage originally thought he would be. Even with his clan's long lives, the elder Uzumaki should have at least a few strands of gray hair. And yet he looks around the same age as Jiraiya-kun and Tsunade Haim. Could it be some kind of seal that he designed over the past few years? Hiruzen thought to himself but pushed it to the back of his mind so he could focus on important matters. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of silence, Hakuna smirked and said, "I'm amazed that you managed to defeat 4 of my Kurokashi so easily. Although they may have lowered their guard during the fight, which would be their own fault." No sooner had he finished that sentence did Hiruzen strike, appearing right before Hakuna with great speed, his adamantine staff already in his hand. Bringing it down with great speed, Hiruzen forced Hakuna to raise his left arm, infused with Shintai, to block the attack. Despite that, Hakuna showed some signs of staggering under the diamond-made staff's weight. "Sire," Shingon shouted as he tried to make his way towards his leader. But the wind pressure from the contact those two made, combined with the chakra they were both releasing, were causing Shingon to be more focused on not falling off his feet or over the edge. So he jumped back several feet in order to remain a safe distance from the two combatants. "I see that even after 5 decades you still haven't changed, Hakuna," Hiruzen said as he jumped backwards to give him some distance from his opponent. "You still show the same lack of compassion for your subordinates even when they're dead." Then the Sandaime Hokage formed hand seals. Katen, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet Jutsu, and Hiruzen fired stream of flames at his opponent, engulfing him in flames. But Hakuna managed to jump through the flames unharmed before he took any serious damage and landed safely on the ground, with Hiruzen in front of him and the flames behind him. Hakuna smirked a little while secretly focusing his healing ability towards his left arm, which had a broken bone due to the strike from Hiruzen's attack. Lack of compassion? On the contrary, I have much compassion for my clan and kin. But no amount of compassion will protect them on the field of battle. The moment that we entered the battlefield they were on their own to survive and they knew it. Then he looked at Hiruzen who was glaring at him. "However, you haven't changed a bit, Hiruzen Sarutobi, even after getting old. It brings me back to see how easily angered you'd get when something displeases you." "Enough talk," Hiruzen said as he thrust the adamantine staff forward. The staff began to extend at a fast rate that many would have trouble following. But Hakuna managed to dodge the strike easily and then raised his left hand towards Hiruzen. From the hand a ball of chakra formed before being fired towards the retired Hokage. However, Hiruzen wasn't one to be easily hit by such an attack, and with great acrobatic skills he managed to do a flip over the chakra blast while keeping a firm grip of his staff. He soon found himself in midair right above Hakuna, and deciding to use this to his advantage he reverted his weapon back to its regular size. Once that was done he made a nosedive towards his opponent, intending to land a blow on Hakuna, adding some chakra to strengthen the attack, but Hakuna seemed to have predicted this as he raised his right arm and made a grabbing motion with his hand. A second afterwards a small round-shaped object, which turned out to be a smaller version of the Uzumaki clan's crest, appeared from underneath Hakuna's cloak. It flew into the air and right into the awaiting palm, which was soon swung upwards to meet Hiruzen's strike. The result of the two attacks colliding was the release of a massive wave of chakra that could be felt all over the village. With the battle between Kushina, Mito and Naruto, the battle between, unknown to Kushina and Mito though, family was interrupted when they felt two massive chakra sources spiking and spreading throughout Konoha. The sudden blast caused Mito to stagger a bit since she wasn't prepared for such a thing, but Kushina and Naruto held their ground, with the former being used to such powerful bursts of chakra and the latter having expecting such an event happening. However, Kushina was surprised when both chakra signatures were familiar. This is. But before she could continue, Naruto chuckled, catching both girls' attention. "Looks like Hiruzen's finally on the field," he said when he stopped chuckling but still had a smile hidden beneath his mask. "However, against Gigi, the old monkey won't stand a chance." Mito was about to make a retort about how Hiruzen wasn't going to lose when Kushina spoke first. "Gigi? You're his grandson?" she asked. "Yes, I am indeed his grandson," Naruto replied. "I owe him a great debt, as do we all. All he requires of us is to follow him, and we will as the clan shall stand united and we will gain our revenge." Kushina looked at her masked opponent in shock. "You're going to follow him just because he helped you? Are you actually willing to die for him?" she asked incredulously. "I wouldn't expect someone like you to understand the meaning of family loyalty. After all, look what happened to your son," Naruto said. Kushina frowned at the comment, getting angry about how people keep reminding her of her failure with Naruto. She wanted nothing more than to find him and make amends with her son. Naruto just glanced at his mother, noticing the look of regret and pain in her face, but he didn't really care. Sure, he knew that his horrible childhood was because of Danzo trying to manipulate his parents. That still didn't mean that Minato and Kushina were completely innocent. They didn't do a thing to stop the shinobi and civilians from attacking and abusing him as a child. He was however grateful that Sasuke and Hinata were engaged elsewhere. While he knew that killing them would be inevitable, he didn't want to be the one to kill the only two that were kind to him as a child. Enough of this pointless talking. My orders are to kill the both of you. And with that, Naruto momentarily sealed his sword before clapping both hands together. Then as he pulled them apart he murmured, "Shining lunar spear." And then a blue-colored spear of chakra appeared in between Naruto's hands. Before Kushina and Mito could react, Naruto threw the glowing spear straight towards them. Fortunately they had enough time to jump out of the way and the spear hit the building behind them. When it did, it released a large explosion that destroyed everything nearby and sent the two Uzumaki females flying. Naruto shot towards Kushina, who was closer to him since the explosion sent her in his direction. But Kushina wasn't a seasoned veteran shinobi for nothing. She immediately recovered and managed to bring up her sword in time to block Naruto's sword strike. "Well, I guess killing you while you were distracted was just wishful thinking," Naruto muttered to himself before going in for another attack. However, to the surprise of Naruto, Kushina, and Mito, a fast-moving image appeared and grabbed Naruto, pulling him away from his fight. The only words Kushina heard was Naruto saying, "Uncle." Back with Hiruzen and Hakuna. After making contact with Hakuna and failing to injure/kill him, Hiruzen did a double backward spin in midair before landing, giving him some distance from his opponent. From there he saw that Hakuna had brought out his weapon, a ornate sword looking similar to a Miao Dao that had a round red-black two-handed handle with a black circular guard. Hiruzen noticed that Hakuna's clothes were slightly singed, giving the old Hokage some satisfaction. "I see that you've finally pulled out your sword," the elder Sarutobi commented. "By the sound of it you wanted me to draw it," Hakuna said as he faced Hiruzen. "I plan on crushing your entire being, and that includes your sword," Hiruzen said as he spun his staff. "Now then, let's continue," the retired Hokage said before charging forward. Hakuna swung his sword sideways to meet Hiruzen. The elder Sarutobi slammed his adamantine staff into the ground and stopped Hakuna's blade. Using his staff as a stepping stool, Hiruzen did a flip in the air over Hakuna. Then focusing chakra into his left fist, the Sundaime Hokage tried to deliver a powerful punch right towards Hakuna's face. But the Emperor of the Takiagari managed to leap backwards just in time, and Hiruzen's fist impaled the ground and formed a crater instead. Hakuna, as he flew backwards, swung his sword downwards and released a large arc slash of chakra towards Hiruzen. However, Hiruzen merely swatted it to the side with a swing of his staff. But that gave Hakuna to launch a sword thrust at Hiruzen, straight towards the former Hokage's chest. But when the sword impaled him, Hiruzen and his staff poofed into smoke, revealing it to be a shadow clone. "Shuriken shadow clone jutsu!" Hiruzen's voice cried from above Hakuna. The Takiagari Emperor looked up and saw hundreds of shuriken rain down upon him. At the same time a pair of hands shot out of the ground underneath Hakuna and grabbed the Uzumaki's legs. "Humph," Hakuna commented. "This is becoming boring," he said as he waved his left hand above him. Aurora color energy followed his hands and soon the barrage of shuriken was scattered everywhere, not harming Hakuna at all. "That must be his Ketsuin ability, Blood Mark," Hiruzen thought as he watched Hakuna stab his clone underground. The clone soon dispersed and Hakuna's legs were freed. Hiruzen frowned as he landed and faced Hakuna again. "I just need to hold out for a little longer." "You know, I've noticed that you've been shadow clones a lot during our fight," Hakuna said as he looked back at Hiruzen. "I've known you for a long time, Hiruzen, and I know that using shadow clones constantly isn't your style, especially at your age. So, what are you up to?" Hiruzen smirked, like he knew something that Hakuna didn't. "Well, my opponent isn't someone I can defeat with my normal style. But don't worry, this battle will end very soon," Hiruzen said as he began building up a massive amount of chakra. Hakuna's eyes widened when he felt Hiruzen's chakra build up. He can't be building up so much chakra from nowhere. That means he's... Hakuna's eyes widened as he figured it out. Aiming at the Sundaime Hokage, Hakuna raised his left hand, which began to glow. "Arrow bullet," he said, and from the palm of his hand he fired a spinning blue chakra arrow the size of a person's arm. The arrow flew at Hiruzen at lightning speed and quickly exploded once it reached the former Hokage. Hakuna watched the smoke rise from the explosion, staring at it impassively while waiting to see if Hiruzen comes out of the smoke. After a few minutes and seeing no signs of Hiruzen, Hakuna smirked with satisfaction. But that feeling left quickly when a voice behind him said, "You should know that an attack like that wouldn't kill me." And before he could react, something strong slammed into Hakuna's back, sending the Takiagari Emperor flying forwards and skidding across the ground. He managed to stop himself before he reached the edge of the Hokage monument, bruised and scratched, while looking with a shock expression. Standing before him and unharmed was Hiruzen Sarutobi with his adamantine staff in hand. However, the Sundaime Hokage looked different. He now had several brown marks, tattoos even, going across his face in an intricate pattern. Furthermore, a large amount of chakra was radiating off of Hiruzen now, and Hakuna instantly knew what it was. This is Senjutsu, Monkey Sage Mode. Hiruzen finished for Hakuna as he stared at the Uzumaki. I must admit it has been some time since I last used this and I wasn't sure I could do it at my age, but I'll manage for now. But how? Hakuna asked as he got up, his right hand still gripping his sword's handle. The Uzumaki could feel several bones broken from the last attack, and it was only thanks to a quick use of Shintai that Hakuna wasn't bleeding. It would be a while for his enhanced healing to mend the bones. In order to go into Sage Mode you need to absorb natural energy, and to do that you need to be absolutely still. Absorb it how? Monkey Sage Mode is a bit different from other variants, Hiruzen said as he lifted his staff over his shoulder. With Enma in his staff mode he can absorb natural energy for me because when he's in that form, he's technically still since I'm the one moving him. Furthermore, I had 2 clones meditating somewhere safe absorbing energy too. Once they were done they would disperse and the natural energy they gathered would go to me. Hakuna glared at Hiruzen. I'm amazed of how far you would go in order to defeat me, that you would use something that is very risky. Hakuna commented. True, but it was necessary in order to defeat you. Hiruzen replied. As it was one of the weaknesses of your medallion. The comment made the Takiagari Emperor's eyes widen before narrowing at Hiruzen. What? Hakuna almost growled. Losing your specialty is indeed a dangerous and terrible thing to happen to anyone, Hiruzen said and continued. However, to even know someone's specialty you must first research it. Along with your mastery of seals, your clan valued information and knowledge greatly too. In other words, you people had to research the skills of the shinobi who presented the greatest threat, because without that you couldn't steal things like Kekkei Genkai, techniques, or a person's fighting style. And my style has changed much the last time we fought. The second thing is that in order for you to even steal it, not only does the person have to do it before you, they have to do hand seals. Hand seals are the most primary requirement for any kind of jutsu. If the person doesn't do it or you can't see it, then your medallion can't steal it, can it? Hiruzen asked Hakuna. Hakuna said nothing, but his glare seemed to have increased at Hiruzen's explanation. And then there is Senjutsu, Hiruzen continued. Senjutsu means I constantly absorb natural energy, which is an outside source of power, into my body. Your medallion won't be able to absorb that much energy because for those who are inexperienced will just turn into stone. Then Hiruzen got into a stance where he gripped his staff with both hands and pulled it back a bit. The front was aiming directly at Hakuna. Are you ready, Enma? We're ending this in one move, Hiruzen said. Ready, Sarutobi, let's do it. Enma replied in his staff form. What? Hakuna growled when he heard what Hiruzen said. The comment made the Uzumaki angry and insulted, feeling like he was being underestimated. You, kill me in one move? Don't make me laugh, Hiruzen Sarutobi. As if a peaceful, lazy old man such as you can kill me in one what? Hakuna's rant ended midway when he realized he couldn't move. Looking down, Hakuna saw that written on his legs were seal formulas. Wait, seals? But when? Then his eyes widened in realization as he recalled something grabbing his legs earlier. The shadow clone. By the look on your face you realize that my clone earlier had placed weight seals on your legs to slow you down a bit, Hiruzen said as he gathered chakra around his staff. Though I was surprised that a seal master such as yourself didn't notice it sooner. Perhaps you're also going a little senile too, Hiruzen joked before getting serious again. This is the end, Hakuna. Senpo. Hakuna grit his teeth as he tried to move. But the seals on his legs and the wound on his back basically made him immobilized. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Hakuna roared at the Sandaime Hokage as a last act of defiance. Monkey King Iron Fist, Hiruzen roared and thrust his adamantine staff forward. Like a cannonball shooting out of a cannon, a force of concentrated chakra in the form of a fist shot out of the staff straight towards Hakuna. Everything after that happened in a second, because Hakuna was now standing stone still with a large hole in his chest. The Takiagari Emperor had a look of shock and disbelief even as he fell backwards, landing on the ground back first. Hiruzen was panting heavily, leaning on his staff for support as sweat rolled down his wrinkled face. The marks on him faded as his Sage Mode deactivated. Enma quickly changed into his normal form, helping his old friend stay on his feet. Are you okay, Sarutobi? The Monkey King asked. I'm fine, Enma. Hiruzen panted. Looking at Hakuna's body, the Sandaime Hokage was positive that the Uzumaki was dead. I'm really getting too old for this. If we had attacked a minute later I wouldn't been able to hold Sage Mode anymore, Hiruzen said as he finally managed to gain his bearings. Enma smirked at his old friend. True, but we won, though there are still invaders in the village. He remarked. Indeed, but with their leader dead, the enemy's morale will go down and might even retreat if given the chance. Hiruzen commented as he looked down at the village. Who's dead? Eyes widening, Hiruzen and Enma spun around at the voice only to be blasted by an invisible force of energy matter. The two friends were sent flying backwards, blood coming out of their mouths from the impact of the surprise attack. Once they managed to recover, Hiruzen and Enma looked up and were utterly shocked to see, standing before them, an unharmed and living Hakuna Uzumaki, with no hole in his chest, and who looked back at them with a mischievous smirk. "How?" Hiruzen murmured at what he was seeing. "How the hell are you alive?" Enma roared at Hakuna as the Monkey King got up. "How am I still alive?" Hakuna asked mockingly with his smirk still on. "Simple really, I wasn't the one you were fighting. He was." Hakuna finished as he pointed towards the body. Hiruzen followed his finger and his jaw dropped in horror when he looked at the body. Gone was the corpse of Hakuna Uzumaki, now lying on the ground with a hole in his chest was the mangled form of Danzo Shimura. The man also had a prosthetic right arm replacing his Makuten arm with the 10th Sharingan. But how? The chakra signature he was giving out, it was definitely yours, and when did you even? You forget I'm a seal master, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Is it so hard to imagine that I could do something as create a seal to forcibly control someone while also having them take my appearance along with my chakra signature, personality, memories and techniques? Hakuna said as if he was talking to a child. As for when I did it, before the start of the invasion. Hiruzen's eyes widened when he realized the implications of that sentence, and Hakuna saw it. Exactly, the Danzo you were speaking to in the INT building was actually me, and I have to say those suppression seals were easy to remove. But don't worry, those root agents are the real deal, though they had no idea that their leader was a fake. Why would you do that? Hiruzen demanded as he glared at Hakuna. Simple really, I wanted to visit the Uzumaki temple outside the village. Hakuna answered, earning a gasp from Hiruzen. It had things in there I wanted to get. Also, despite its less graceful appearance, it's still important me, and I wanted no interruptions. So I had Danzo take my place to shift attention from me. Hakuna soon drew his sword and raised it towards Hiruzen. So what now, Sundaime Hokage? Did you use up all your chakra and strength fighting my fake? Hakuna asked mockingly. The taunt angered Hiruzen and he acted quickly, not knowing he was being pulled into a trap. Shut up, shadow clone. Hiruzen's sentence was cut off as he felt many of his techniques disappearing from him, as it was all pulled by a black vortex into the medallion that Hakuna held. The Uzumaki looked at the former Hokage. While you're correct on that, we require information on the person's abilities. If the target needs in their chakra and begins forming the technique, we can steal it. Also, the first requirement can be overruled if the user is stronger than the target. That and only someone with biologically born Uzumaki blood can use these, which is why Danzo, in my appearance, didn't use it at all. Hakuna explained before looking at the medallion. Now then, perhaps I should summon some monkeys and have them attack the village. You bastard, Enma roared when he heard Hakuna's suggestion and charged towards the Uzumaki. But Hakuna only spared him a glance before firing another wave of energy matter that upon impact with the Monkey King exploded. The explosion didn't kill Enma, but the injuries he sustained forced him back to the summoning world. Enma, Hiruzen shouted as he watched his friend disappear. But a shadow soon fell over him. Looking up, Hiruzen saw Hakuna before him, his sword raised and covered in chakra. A malicious smile on his face, Hakuna said 3 words to him. Farewell, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Before he brought his sword down on the Sandaime Hokage. Back with Shingon, the Uzumaki was making his way towards Hakuna. He had felt the disguised Danzo's chakra disappear before sensing his leader's chakra, and soon after the chakra of Hiruzen's disappearing. It was clear that the battle was over and who the victor was too. Looks like it's over, a voice said. Not even flinching, Shingon looked as Kane appeared before him, a bit dirty and rough around the edges, but the second in command of the Takiagari looked fine. The Konoha shinobi were all in distress when Hiruzen's chakra disappeared. Their morale is way down now, Kane commented. I see, Shingon said as he and Kane walked over towards their leader. How was your fight, Kane-san? The captain of the Kurokashi asked the son of the Takiagari emperor. Kind of easy really, though I guess I got lucky, Kane said, earning a question look from Shingon. If Minato had set his kunai around the area where we fought, he could have easily overwhelmed me despite my seal's ability. That and his feelings got in the way, making it less difficult for me to beat him. That's good to hear, Kane-san. Shingon replied. What about your nephew? I sensed that he was fighting his mother and sister. He was, but I pulled him out before coming here. Kane answered. Father wants him to be ready, and having him fighting right now would make him displeased. Naruto wasn't happy about it, but he didn't argue. We managed to slip away without Kushina spotting me. Kane took a breather before continuing. I'll be heading back now to check on the others. From what I can tell, we lost 5 members including the 4 Hiruzen killed. Who was the 5th? Shingon asked in surprise that another of Kurokashi were killed. Guggen, Done in by Tsunade. Kane replied. And I'm not sure, but I think Bezo is dead too. Anyway, I'm going. You should go and check on His Majesty, Kane said before heading down towards the village. Shingon just watched Kane disappear before heading towards Hakuna. Said person had his sword in his hand, with a weapon covered in blood that dripped onto the ground. Lying before him was the body of Hiruzen Sarutobi. He had his face against the ground and a large cut going down the left side of his body with a large amount of blood coming out. Lying aimlessly on the side was Hiruzen's helmet, split in two from Hakuna's sword strike. Your Majesty, Shingon said as he approached his leader and bowed. Hakuna just gazed down at the fallen form of Hiruzen, a look of pity on his face towards the former Hokage. Finally he turned spoke to Shingon. We're finished here, Shingon. Let's go. Yes, sire. Shingon replied with a bow. As Hakuna moved to walk away, he stopped when he felt something grab his right leg. Looking down, he saw that Hiruzen had grabbed it with his right hand, a dying attempt to stop Hakuna. Humph, how pitiful. Hakuna muttered as he calmly cut off Hiruzen's arm from the elbow. I can't believe that even when dying you would still try to stop me. Hakuna turned around to face Hiruzen's body again while putting his sandal on the former Hokage's bald head. Do you know why we have reached this moment right now, Hiruzen Sarutobi? Hakuna asked, but wasn't really expecting a response. It's because you're weak. And it's not because you're compassionate. It's that you're too compassionate. You allowed Danzo and Orochimaru to conduct their plans in the darkness, allowed them to escape even when you had the chance to kill them. You used to be different though. In the past you still had compassion, but you were also a beast. Wherever you went, your enemies feared you and your might. You showed no mercy to anyone that threatened your home, whether it being invaders or traitors. But after the end of each war, when peace came, after the destruction of Ozushio, you began to lose your fierceness little by little and became more and more compassionate. And that became your downfall, Hakuna said as he removed his foot from Hiruzen's head. The people of Konoha also became relaxed and arrogant, believing themselves to be the best and in the right, simply because of famous people such as Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, the Yellow Flash, the White Fang, the Sannin and yourself. You let people push you around like a puppet on strings and let problems after problems form, piling up more mistakes on your shoulders. Then Hakuna raised his left arm and pointed his index finger at Hiruzen. Chakra began to form around it as Hakuna kept speaking. Even though you're dead, I will tell you this, Konoha is going to fall, but its will of fire died 50 years ago, along with Ozushio. And with that, Hakuna released a barrage of chakra bullets. When they touched Hiruzen, it created a huge explosion, consuming Hiruzen's body and about 50 feet of ground around him. The explosion could be heard throughout the village, and everyone, both Konoha Nin and Kurokishi, paused as they looked towards the mushroom cloud smoke form in the air. With his back facing Shingon and his eyes on the rising smoke. Notify the Kurokishi. We're leaving the village now. With their forces decimated by half, we'll wait and see what the other nations and villages will do before planning our next move. Hakuna ordered. Yes, sire, Shingon replied as a portal leading into darkness opened behind them. As they entered it, more portals opened over the village for the Kurokishi to enter. Quickly the Takiagari people entered their respective portals, leaving Konoha, a village now in ruins. That's the end, guys. If you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a comment. This is Chaos Shinobi signing off.